Okay, my little research masters, what we are going to do in this video is have a look at some examples of actual pieces of students' work that relate to E1, to have a look at what are some of the good points of what they've done, sometimes pointing out things that you want to avoid, but to give you a idea of what we're looking for E1, okay? So again, if you head to the public drive, and I am in my folder, research project and evaluation, there is a document in there called example of E1. I've also got half a dozen hard copies of that will be floating around the room over the next week or so. When you open up that document, you will have something open in front of you that looks like this, okay? So now this is only part of the whole evaluation. Remember that the whole evaluation is around 1,500 words. E1 itself focuses specifically upon the usefulness of the research processes that we used specific to the research question. You've got approximately 500 words to explain to moderators your thinking in regards to that. Remember from the SACE board document that was part of your package that was given to you, what you are asked to do was to make judgments about the effectiveness of the processes that you used to collect information as part of your research. And they could be qualitative or quantitative types of research. They could be practical experiments that you ran. They could be field work that you did. It might be interviews that you undertook. It could be online active or online passive research. It could be interviews, emails, etc., etc. You need to make reference to those specific sources of information, and you need to provide examples of the usefulness of that particular research process. So we're looking for rankings. This was the most useful or the least useful, etc. And we are looking at how it has affected your research. Okay, so the first example that we've got here is the use of an organisational website, which for this student was afl.com. So online research was of the greatest value to me, so they've immediately made a judgment about how useful it was in advancing the course of my research. This research enabled me to find answers to most of my guiding questions and helped me develop a clear idea about the reasons of the popularity of football in Australia. So they've spoken about why this website was so useful. They said it was their greatest value, and it linked to most of their guiding questions. Now, your guiding question could be your focus question or the key ideas, those subheadings that you use within your work. Most of you have got 2 or 3, sometimes up to 4. This one website helped with most of their guiding questions, therefore it was deemed to be pretty useful. So one of the most useful websites in this regard was the official AFL website, which helped me gather information about different clubs, players, contracts, as well as some historical information relating to footy. This website was quite reliable, being the official website of the footy's governing body in Australia, and it provided information which was quite well researched. So they have provided a reason for their thinking as to why it was so useful. This information was further corroborated by information that I found from other secondary sources. So that speaks to the reliability of the information, because they have been able to back up what this site is saying by using other sources that are saying the same kind of thing. That leads to the reliability and the credibility of the information. This research process was particularly useful as I was finding it hard to gather information from magazines and interviews. So they've made a judgment about that research process. Now that would not be the entirety of what I would expect for E1, but that's most certainly the start. I would expect that there's probably 2 more paragraphs that come after that, talking about 2 other research processes or specific websites and things that were utilised. From a different research project, someone who used a documentary as one of their research processes, watching a documentary called Going Feral. So watching a documentary specific to feral rabbits was of great usefulness in advancing my research, as it allowed me to analyse information visually as well as audibly. This combination proved to be both interesting and educational. Specifically, it covered the way feral rabbits were introduced to Australia and how they became the problem they are today. As useful as this documentary was, it left me asking some questions, such as what advances have there been in rabbit control since 2017? Now, by highlighting that, they're actually saying that, this led me to think more broadly about my question, and it led me to then research in other areas. So it gave me the opportunity to expand upon my knowledge. I was then able to have these answered in my interview with pest control expert Darren Warren. A limitation of this documentary was its specific focus on habitats and characteristics of feral rabbits and not on the control methods and techniques available, meaning that the documentary predominantly contributed to the question, again, focus area, specific key feature, whatever you want to call it. What are feral rabbits and how did they become a problem? Furthermore, this restricted the documentary from being as useful as some online sources or my interview. Nevertheless, the information provided significantly contributed to my knowledge of feral rabbits and provided considerably more information than the use of government websites did. So they have made a judgment. They've told me about why it was a useful process. They've spoken about how it helped them further their research and where they might have gone next. The next paragraph in this particular evaluation might very well be talking about the interview that they did with the pest controller, and then their last paragraph might be talking about their use of government websites and why they were not as useful or not as credible, etc., etc. Okay. Then we have another example down here about internet, PDFs, documents from websites. So I chose to use the internet as a method of gathering information as it provides a diverse range. I really tried to limit myself to only using websites from organisations and government websites, as they provide non-biased information and recent statistics and data on domestic violence. There are some limitations with this, and I mean, you can highlight there that statistics and government information with regards to domestic violence might be about the types of programs that are provided, but they most certainly won't be talking about the outcomes and following survivors through and the feelings and all the rest of it that come through there. So remember that there is some limitations to focusing wholly and solely on things like government websites. And as they've mentioned, the limitations I had with using the internet as a source to gather information was that I found some websites provided conflicting information and were out of date. So again, that demonstrates their ability that they have looked at various sources and compared them and contrasted them. On one occasion, I found a website was misleading by suggesting domestic violence only related to physical violence. Overall, I found the internet helpful once I knew that the website was trustworthy. Lastly, I used brochures and PDFs from online organisations to gather information about my topic. I accessed a number of PDFs from websites, but believe they were biased as they came mainly from organisations or groups who were trying to target a specific group of people. They also provided misleading information suggesting that most men perpetrate violence and the like. I wouldn't recommend using sources written by only one person who was trying to promote their own agenda, as opposed to providing factual information. So sorting through this information was challenging and time consuming, as it posed initially as helpful. So that demonstrates that the further they got into their research and they were able to start identifying those limitations and the biases within what they were doing, it altered and changed some of their thinking with regards to the information they were collecting. Thinking about what each of these ones would be worth, that one I think was in a B grade evaluation. This one, by the time it was put with the other couple of paragraphs that go with it, was heading towards an A or an A minus. This one, from memory, I think it was heading towards a B plus, A minus type area as well. This one, I'll let you read that. My eyesight's not good enough to get to there, but you can also see that there are some pieces of feedback that are provided by the marker with regards to this piece as well. This one, fruitarian evaluation. A fruitarian is a person who only eats fruit. Firstly, I did a mind map of what I could look at in my research project. I thought that I could look at making a water feature, research about a famous painter or writer, or a rag doll cat breeding. I settled on first want to look at making a water feature for my mother's garden because she'd like it. I looked into the library at school and couldn't find a thing that I could make. I didn't really like the designs, plus I thought it would cost too much and take up too much time. By this time it was almost a month gone. I did go to, I'm assuming that's Bunnings, and talk to a man. Then I was sure I didn't want to make the water feature. My teacher said to find something I was interested in. That night I had a discussion with my mum about my diet, so we decided that I should look at the fruitarian diet. I got a pamphlet that I'd gotten from the lady at the market from my room who was selling fruit that dropped. You don't go picking it off the tree, you're only waiting for the fruit to drop from the tree and only eating the fruit that is dropped. It was really good at telling me why it's good to be a fruitarian and the benefits for the fruit, what fruits to eat and what not to do, and their benefits. I thought I could have found her and interviewed her, but her number from the pamphlet wasn't answering. I thought I could go to the market, but Mum didn't go back again in time and my friends didn't want to go. After this, I had lots of discussions with my friends about how they were feeling on the diet. Were they losing weight? Were they able to get the dropped fruit and stuff like that so that we could support ourselves on the diet? A couple of comments about that one. Now, that's not evaluation, that's recount. All of this stuff up here about doing mind maps, looking into something, deciding to change your topic, etc., etc., that is not evaluating a process that you use in your research. It is not relevant. So half of what they've written here would not contribute towards the grades in any way, shape or form. The other things that they've spoken about here, you know, I tried ringing someone once and they didn't answer, so I didn't try again. You know, I didn't go back to the market. I'm sure there's other ways that you could have researched what fruitarianism is and all the rest of it. They've spoken a little bit down here about some discussions with their friends. Hopefully they've done some interviews, they've kept some notes, those kinds of things. That's an actual research process, but that's like one sentence out of what they've written. As far as a grade for that one goes, that's not a passing piece. That would be a D-. Be aware of that. So the final one, evaluation of research processes used specific to my question. So note they've got the specific feature or the performance standard up here as their subheading. There are 3 paragraphs, so they've spoken about more than one research process, one process here, one process here, one process here. Due to the nature of my topic, the most useful research process was internet-based research using popular press articles. So, you know, articles from the Herald Sun, from the Advertiser, from the New York Times, etc. That's what popular press means. This process allowed me to look at a variety of different research that helped answer my guiding questions and also helped me gain a better understanding of how women are affected while using social media. One of the most useful internet-based articles came from the website Medical Express. Notice they have referenced, as it was able to explain how social media can harm a woman's perspective of their body image. This article also provided statistics which helped develop a better understanding of the issue and allowed for comparison to my own survey results. So again, making correlations between different types of research processes. I was able to break down and analyse the popular articles I looked at and pulled out the most useful and relevant information to substantiate my research. The process was valid and credible as I was able to conduct checks online into the sources of information and the author's knowledge of the topic. So it demonstrates that they have done some background checking. You'll notice the use of language is research based. They're talking about validity, credibility, relevant information, substantiation, etc. Then we have the next most useful process. So we've ranked our processes. Was accessing blogs. As my research topic is one that is viewed in so many ways with so many different opinions, it was highly relevant to access online sources from people included in posting to these types of sites. Blogs gave me the opportunity to do this, as many blogs are from influencers. When it came down to looking through blogs written by and about women on social media, some were really surprising and shocking in a way, as it was the women themselves reflecting on how they got affected by social media. Because of this, they were highly credible sources of information. Blogs were very useful in a way of getting different perspectives from women all around the world, which demonstrate how social media really contributes to female self-image worldwide. This research method was particularly helpful in developing a greater understanding of how women are using social media in their day-to-day lives. So they have evaluated the usefulness of that as a research process. They've spoken about how it affected their overall outcome. They've spoken about how it has led on in their research and, you know, opened up other areas for them to look at, etc., and affected their thinking about their topic. My last but still a very useful process was my survey. Now, they mentioned their survey earlier on. You meant up here where they said something about data being able to be checked against surveys. Can't see it up there, but it's in there somewhere. Anyway, Creating my survey, I designed specific questions to gain information about narrow aspects of my broad topic. I also asked targeted questions to be able to compare data to other articles I'd found earlier in my research. These targeted questions resulted in data which helped develop a clear indication of how my community, the survey respondents were primarily my peers and friends, the group my questions targeted at, is being affected by social media. Using a survey also provided a successful way of supporting secondary information that I gathered specific to my research. With my survey being posted out on social media app, Facebook, I was able to target a wider response from a highly relevant community. I was able to gather a total of 53 responses from females, all answering with valid and detailed, usually thoughtful answers. As it was an anonymous survey, respondents didn't need to worry about their personal information getting out, hence they could be totally candid in their answers. This improved its usefulness to my research, as if it were an identified survey, I may not have been able to get as many candid responses. Hopefully you see the difference between that response, which I'm going to say would definitely be in the A band, and depending upon the rest of it, it would be heading towards the A+, and something like the Fruitarian evaluation that you have seen here. Hopefully you can also tell the difference between that A1 and even like the start of these ones, going feral, AFL, etc., etc. The other piece of information that's provided on here is some information from markers. So at the A level in the evaluation, what markers are told to look for, what they are finding the A level demonstrates. The evaluation looks back perceptively on the whole research project. It critiques the processes undertaken to develop the research. There is critical evaluation of the decisions made and actions taken when faced with challenges and opportunities, so that's E2. The evaluation presents insights about the perceived quality of the research outcome, that's E3. Reflects on the significance and limitations of the research. Ideas are communicated fluently and accurately. You can most certainly see that within that last one there, it is fluent, it is accurate, and it looks back perceptively on the whole research project, critiques the processes that they have undertaken to develop their research. There's a few more characteristics about what they will be looking at there. So balanced judgments about activities in relation to the validity of the data and information obtained, the manageability, the ethical appropriateness, judgments considered effectiveness, successes, limitations, alternative processes that could have been undertaken, etc. Do be careful though that you don't focus on what you didn't do, focus on what you did do. That's what moderators are actually looking for. So that is a reference piece or an example piece of other students' work. Now it's time to get stuck into your own piece. Use the pro forma, the scaffold that you have for the evaluation. Use those subheadings. So use E1, evaluation of the research processes. Underneath that, use another subheading, survey, online research, interview, documentary, subheadings, and evaluate 2 or 3 of the different processes that you used specifically. Okay, good luck.